James Gunn's DCU has a problem that most people aren't discussing. And honestly, it's not even about the casting choices or tone or whether you like his style. The issue is much more fundamental than that. It's the actual design of the universe he's trying to build. Because right now, he's attempting something that looks ambitious on paper, connecting live action, 2D animation, TV shows, movies, and even video games into one single continuous story. And I get why that sounds exciting. It sounds like a creative vision. It sounds unified. But when you stop and look at how general audiences actually watch things, it immediately starts to fall apart. The truth is, most people don't follow animation. Most people don't watch every show tied to a movie universe. And definitely, most people aren't jumping across mediums just to understand one storyline. That's not how audiences behave. It never has been. So starting an entire cinematic universe, which is supposed to be movie-based, hence cinematic, with an R-rated animated series, that already creates a barrier. It forces casual viewers to do homework. And the people who already don't care about animation are suddenly required to watch just to keep up. So this isn't a James Gunn is bad video. I'm not a Snyder bro, and this isn't about his talent or his movie. I like all the projects so far, individually that is. So this is about the structure of what he's trying to build, because the strategy itself doesn't make sense for a franchise that needs millions of casual moviegoers to follow along and a big competitor that they've been losing against for years. That's how much stakes there are to the DCU. And if you look at how Marvel handled the exact same idea and how it ended once everything started tying into shows, we already know where this road leads. Before we get there, let's start with the core issue. Why mixing 2D animation and live action in a single cinematic universe doesn't actually work the way Gunn thinks it will. Alright, so here's the thing. On paper, it sounds ambitious, but when you think about how mainstream audiences interact with his stuff, it makes absolutely no sense. Most people don't follow animated shows. They don't watch tie-ins. They don't track extended lore across mediums. They go to the movies. That's it. So when the first official project of your brand new cinematic universe is Creature Commandos, a fully animated show with characters most people don't even know, you've already created a homework problem. People who love animation should watch animation because they love the medium, and people who don't watch animation, which, let's be honest, is a large portion of general moviegoers, simply won't. Not because they hate animation, but because it's not a part of the routine. It's not how they engage with stories. So what happens? Either the animated shows are essential and half the audience feels lost, or they're not essential and the whole idea of one unified universe becomes a marketing tactic, and that would straight up be an insult to animation. There's no middle ground here. If everything matters, it's inaccessible. If nothing truly matters, it's inconsistent. And then we get the drastic difference between the two mediums, because animation naturally embraces exaggeration, bold colors, and stylized action. It's allowed to be larger than life. But live action has to ground those same designs in reality. And once you translate animated characters into the real world, things get weird fast. Take Phosphorus from Creature Commandos. He looks great in animation, striking, expressive, and full of personality. But in live action, are we really expecting him to look even close to that without layers of CGI? You're asking a lot from the VFX department. And even with the CGI, he might not look up to par, because they're mixing mediums that follow different visual rules and expecting them to blend seamlessly. They won't. And instead of building a cohesive universe, this creates a strange tonal whiplash. A stylized animated world feeding directly into a grounded live-action world that can't match its energy or its aesthetic. It's ambitious, sure, but can they pull it off seamlessly? We'll find out, but I just don't think it's possible. But for what it's worth, I'm glad he's making a big deal out of animation. DC animation has been on a decline recently, and it's not as big as it used to be. I just wish he would bring animation to the limelight without dependence on the live action side of things. Here's the part that actually surprises me. This trying a different medium strategy is not a new thing, but Marvel already tried this, and the results speak for themselves, so you think DC would learn. When Marvel launched Disney Plus, they made a huge decision. The shows were no longer optional bonuses. They were essential chapters of the MCU. On paper, that sounded exciting, but in reality, it fractured the audience overnight. Suddenly, there were two groups: hardcore fans who watched everything, and casual fans who just wanted to see the movies. Not to talk of people who don't even enjoy serialized content. And once the MCU started expecting everyone to keep up with 6 to 8 episode series, people who skipped the show started feeling disconnected. They weren't in the loop anymore, not because the stories were confusing, but because the required watching kept piling up. And honestly, even for me, those shows just didn't feel exciting enough to justify that level of commitment. Not bad, just homework. Longer, slower, less essential, but treated as if they were mandatory reading. The Marvel struggled partly because it required full knowledge of WandaVision and Miss Marvel. If you didn't watch both, the movie felt like you missed a chapter. And Captain America Brave New World demands familiarity with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So it used to be simple. Marvel movie releases, family goes to cinema, repeat next time. And granted, it's no one's fault that you didn't watch the last Marvel movie, but the shows made it much harder to keep up. And it's literally a cinematic universe for a reason. Cinema as in theaters, theaters as in movie. But the MCU only hit this wall after a decade of success. The DCU, on the other hand, they're starting from zero with the same flaw. Before the first movie even drops, they have an R-rated live action show and an R-rated animated show. And don't get me started on the Peacemaker situation. Peacemaker is basically acting as a weird bridge between the old DCEU and Gunn's new DCU, and the only way it works is because they're shifting and rewriting things behind the scenes to make it fit. Is it a bad fix? No, but let's call it what it is. More homework. DC is repeating Marvel's mistake, but without the decade of goodwill. Then there's the voice actor problem. This is one of those decisions that sounds brilliant on paper until you actually think about how it works in practice. James Gunn wants the same actor to play their character in live action and animation, but when you break it down, it actually doesn't work. The first issue is simple. Being a good actor doesn't automatically mean you're a good voice actor. Animation demands a different kind of performance, bigger projection, sharper timing, and clearer emotional reads. Your voice has to carry the entire expression. Marvel's What If already proved this. Some returning actors sounded flat, tired, or just bored. Not because they were bad actors, but because voice acting is a different skill set. And here's the problem. If you keep the same actor, you risk stiff, low-energy voice acting that drags down the animation. If they hire a different voice actor, the character identity breaks. Their face and voice no longer match across mediums. Either way, something snaps. Real quick, before I continue, let me remind you to subscribe if you've enjoyed the video so far. It helps the channel, thanks. Now for the elephant in the room. Mixing 2D animation and live action in one unified continuity sounds innovative, right? It sounds cool, it sounds new, but the mediums do not behave the same way, and the more stylized animation becomes, the more impossible it is to make the live action side feel like the same world. You can see 2D animation do things live action simply can't. It can exaggerate without breaking immersion. Animation thrives off that freedom. Live action doesn't. If you try to replicate those visuals in a movie, you need CGI heavy sequences, and when the animated projects keep pushing their style further, the gap only widens. We're already seeing the limit of DC CGI. The CGI in the Superman movie has moments where the characters look rubbery or gummy, and it doesn't look good if we're being honest. And that's not even mentioning characters who simply don't resemble each other across mediums, like Rick Flag, who looks dramatically different design-wise between versions. The more stylized the animated projects get, the more the live action side becomes visually trapped. Either tone down the animation, which ruins its appeal, or overspend on the CGI, ruining the budget. At the end of the day, everything in this video boils out to one simple truth. Billion-dollar cinematic universes don't survive on superfans. They survive on casual moviegoers. And right now, James Gunn is designing a system that only the most dedicated fans will keep up with, not the people who actually make these franchises profitable. Look, we love this stuff. We analyze it, we follow every update, but we're not the majority of the audience. The majority are casual moviegoers, and that's the group a cinematic universe must appeal to if it wants long-term success. The DCU is being built for fans like us, not the overwhelming majority who just want to watch a superhero movie. Marvel already went through this, and DC is choosing to start with that exact same problem. Look, James Gunn is talented. He's a strong writer and a strong director, and he understands these characters better than most people in the industry. But I don't think his plan is bad because he's untalented. It's because the structure itself doesn't make sense, and is obviously pandering towards the more hardcore fans. And unless the foundation changes, everything built on top of it is going to feel unstable, no matter how good the individual projects are.